Yeah, like my dining room.
Well, not your dining room, but in the conference room.
Yeah, in the community room. Sure.
Like black box theater type of
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of stuff, we just went to a deal over at Rex Putnam High School,
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
and it was just like a theater annex, was not, evidently not the big part, but it
Oh,
was,
gotcha. Yeah.
I think there was probably 40 people there.
Yeah, I've been to theaters like that before. They're very nice. They're very
Yeah.
nice for the right play.
Yeah, usually experimental
And
type stuff.
it's amazing what you can get away with, very minimalistic set.
Mm-hmm. It's true. All right, I'm gonna go to the restroom and then I'm gonna unlock the door. DA's not here. By the time
We need a
back.
quorum.
Okay.
Quorum is 4, right?
Yeah, we need a quorum. As long as we don't vote on anything, I think we're fine. So we could hold off approval of everything else.
We could-
Yeah, definitely.
To make it dramatic, we can say we won't approve it. To get some drama, we could say, no, we're not.
Oh, yeah. Always waited for somebody to vote nay on that.
I think DA usually wanders in right.
That's right, at 5, yeah.
Well, there's art policy on here.
Yeah. I was wondering if he doesn't show up,
think we have to say something so he knows we're,
Yeah, Scott's got it under control.
Oregon City Library Board meeting will come to order at 5:08. In attendance, Ken Hall, Don Wright, and Scott Edwards. Were there any corrections for the minutes?
I see none.
All right, we'll set that aside for now. Any public comments? Don't see any. We will move to my favorite part, the library director's report. Mo?
Great. Thank you, sir. Let's see here. I actually didn't write a separate report. I wonder if that will come up on here. Show me the text of it. Nope. I
no,
can't see
it
it.
doesn't like me. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so this month, our door count was, very good, but it's, it's October, it's not August. And our door count in August was 41,000, but this month was over 34,000, which is quite respectable. I was telling, I was at the Friends luncheon today, and I was telling them that our circulation, although it is trending down nationally of materials, ours is relatively steady or rising, but like October was not a great month. And I can't quite figure out why, because when I look back at all the statistics, they don't look that different from previous months, but somehow it adds up to a lot less. So, our self-checks transactions, we are still above 80% of first-time self-checks are on our first-time checkouts are on our self-checks, which is really, really good. So all the good work that the staff is doing to show people how to use our new RFID equipment is working out really, really well. We had a gazillion children's programs last month. And so 38 is a gazillion with over 1,000 kids in attendance, almost 1,100.
Wow.
I looked back over previous months because, as I just said, I presented to the Friends of the Library today, and I presented to the Citizen Involvement Committee on Monday night. And so I wanted to have like a good concept of statistics in my mind. And, some months we do have like almost 1,500 kids attending things. Those are like summer months typically, So this is very healthy for a fall month. We've kind of started collating teen programs into the children's numbers. So it's like gotten harder for me to understand what's teen and what's not. But we do have a new teen advisory group, and the requirements are that each of the teens volunteer 1 hour a week in the library, and so they're shelving, which is really, really nice. And then they'll have a meeting once a month, and what they basically do is suggest program ideas for the librarians to put on for them and other teens. And they've had some really, really good ideas. So I'm looking forward to having more teen-specific things coming up. It's a very hard age group. And how young do we allow that teen advisory committee to be?
We have some 12-year-olds.
Yeah. Like the 11 and 12-year-olds are really kind of the most interested, 13, 14, and then they start getting really busy in high school. So we see them, but not as in groups like we do the middle schoolers, so. Cultural passes and patron registrations have stayed up, so we average about 300 registrations a month, and our overall numbers have gone down because of registrations, but like total, because the network did kind of a purge of dead records, and so like every library's numbers have gone down by almost, but it's kind of a percentage thing, but for us it was like almost 3,000 people. And so we were right at that 20,000 mark, and now we're like under 18,000. I know, but we are still writing a lot of new, registering and a lot of new cards every month. And our cultural passes have been up around 55 and 60 consistently. And last year they were like 29, 30. So it's really, really great to see people using those. We're adding about 1,000 new items a month, although this month wasn't as much. We have finally finished, and the angels are singing the Hallelujah chorus, let me tell you, pre-processing for the adult materials. And what that means is that one of the companies that we buy books from, when they send us those books, they're gonna be virtually ready to put on the shelf. So the labeling and book covering and stuff that we've been doing in-house is gonna be done off-site from one of the companies that we order from. And it's one of the bigger companies, it's Ingram. They have a warehouse down in Roseburg, so like we get things pretty quickly from them. But we still order items from other places. And this is kind of, in order to avoid paying for more staff in this area, because we are adding more books, then this is a easy way to like offset that, so the staff that we have can be attend towards the patron things instead of.
They also do the RFID.
Yep. So because we want our staff to intersect with our patrons as much as possible, not be in the back room. And there's enough stuff that has to be done away from people, right? So this is one thing that we can kind of do offsite. So that's going on. The next challenge is to get the children's materials, which is more complicated because there's like way more little finite collections of children's materials. Our youth services librarian has made it a challenging place to shelf. And then lastly, on the statistics, we show a lot more money than last year this time, but last October we were closed for over a week when we moved into the new building, or the old building, moved back into the old building. But this represents only 3 deposits because Denise had to go on vacation, of all things. Yeah. And then, so what's new at the library? I would have to say that staffing is in flux. We have Judy Corliss retiring at the end of this month. And then we just recently offered she's a library assistant 3, a 40-hour week. We offered a library assistant 2, 30-hour week position to an in-house candidate. We did lots of interviews, Denise and I, with somebody from the finance department. We always try to bring a third party in from outside, so we have this like nice objective point of view. And we did that last week and offered the job to somebody, but it's not been announced yet, so you don't get to hear it either, because this is like streaming, so, or whatever at least. And then we had somebody move, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, moving over to the coast. And then we have somebody getting a new full-time job at the Gladstone Library, and there may be other kind of fallout from that. So we are starting, we just posted yesterday, a new on-call recruitment, and those are under 20-hour-a-week positions. And what we like to do is hire a number of those people and train them, and then schedule them. We like to have them on the schedule like this so that they come in once a week, so they can kind of keep everything fresh in their mind. Because otherwise, a lot of them work at other libraries. It's really hard to keep everything straight when you don't come in regularly. And then we'll have some flexibility again. The person who got a new job in Gladstone, she was a 24-hour-a-week person. That's a union position, and I can replace that if I want to, but I'm gonna kind of hold back and see how things shake out a bit right now. So, so staffing, what else has been going on? I'm trying to remember because I wrote the report and now I can't pull it up.
Seems like that's all we've been doing in the last several weeks.
Yeah, we've been really focused on that. So any questions about the library report? And I did send you guys, I think, the library calendar for the month of November as well. That kind of gives you a clue as to all the programs and stuff that are going on, so that's kind of nice. Any questions? Okay.
Next item of business, the annual report to the state library.
Right. And so this is the report that we turn in by every October 1st. And what I really like about this report is you can see your previous year's answers and compare it. So I printed that out, which is super nice. So, you know, you can see down in part 2 on the first page that we've gone up in our number of other paid staff. Our librarians are the same, but other paid staff has gone up slightly. And now that number's probably changed since then, even, because we keep tweaking staff and people come and go, and that's just life. So at any one time, that number might be different, but we have gone up in staffing, which is appropriate for the size of library we have. And then on the expenditures, you know, our income is about the same. It's gone up a little bit. It goes up from our district. It goes up a little bit every year from our district, which is really great because it goes up enough to cover kind of inflation plus is what we're finding. That's the district. Now, this is last year. There's an approved budget that's already in place for 17-18 and then 18-19 because we do biennium. And you will know that from that the city contribution has been reduced to $100,000 a year.
Really?
Yeah,
The reason being,
they don't have the money.
okay,
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes because that does place a higher burden on us. But it's looking pretty good out there in the revenue area. And in expenditures, this one still has us, well, that's library expenditures. Capital outlay is also included in that. So the tail end of our project is included in this. And that was distributed over, of course, more than 1 year. So that's listed in there.
not being too sarcastic, but I'm glad to see that the state government sources went up $100.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the only money we get from the state is the Ready to Read grant.
Okay,
And that's it. So it's really, really kind of ridiculous. They support us in other ways, but unlike other states, they have no money to distribute except for that. And so when we talk about standards, the library standards, like other states, they can actually withhold money if you don't meet standards. Here, it means nothing.
yeah,
You know, it means absolutely nothing.
go ahead and withhold your $8,234.
Yeah, see if I care, yeah. It's not gonna make or break my budget, right? And then the physical collection, I think this is where you'll see like the highest change from the year before, and I'm on page like 3 now, I think, under, what number is that? Part 5. So, you'll know from all the books that we had in storage that we got rid of because they were either out of date or in poor condition. And the weeding that we did on our shelves from moving and RFID, that, you know, our collection got really, really small. So right now, it's about, it's a little bit bigger than what it was stated here. It's about 47,000 volumes. And we're adding at about the rate of 1,000 a month. And we probably will go faster when we start doing pre-processing, because that's been taking a chunk of psychic energy from people. But, you know, we are definitely in a rebuilding our collection stage. And so as much as I would love to like borrow less from other libraries, we're just not there yet. So our borrowing from other libraries is the same now as it was before. Even though we're in a bigger building, our collection is not as robust, you know, as it needs to be. So like we have like less than 50,000 volumes, and there are several libraries that have about that many, like Estacada, that's about how many they have. But like Lake Oswego and West Lynn and Wilsonville, they all have like over 100,000, you know? So we, at one point in time, had like 130,000 volumes, and I have to tell you that well over half of them were complete and utter crap. You know, they were saved because they had no money to buy more books, and so they saved every last thing. And so we had things that were in horrible condition that were still on the shelves, and the shelves were packed so tightly that you couldn't even pull one out, back in stacks that you couldn't even like see because the room was so dark. So I know we need more in this area, but I so much prefer where we are now to where we were before. There he is. Hey, DA.
I apologize for being so late.
I'm glad you still came.
We do now.
You know,
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
went
so
on
don't
about-
leave, we got you.
Thank you.
So going on, library services is all about how much you're open. We're talking about the state library report. You know, and that hasn't changed wildly from year to year.
have you seen this?
Circulation, if you look at 6.27, and that's total physical item circulation, I just want you to know that, like, years ago, we did not circulate 568,000 items. That's an error. Yeah. So it looks bad compared to where we are now, but that was an error.
I'm looking at 6.7, right?
So, okay.
6.27.
6.27.
Yeah, it's on, like. the
Yeah, guys,
sixth page, yeah.
I'm working on it.
It's way too big.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And of course, that carries on to the next page. Yeah.
It's interesting that seems to be way off, but all the rest of them seem to be
I know.
reasonable.
So I have no idea what happened there, and I tried to have that fixed. And they actually have to like go up to the national level or some
Oh,
ridiculous
sure you
thing
do.
at this point to like adjust a past report.
I just
yeah.
leave that number there
These
that-
get like turned in someplace and
Yeah.
blah, 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 you know? So anyway, I'm not gonna worry about it too much. So, you know, this is like that snapshot that I kind of provide for you, monthly, over a year. So. And then other information, salary ranges, library technology, just a real snapshot of that. Okay, so on part 9, here's another big change. I like this one. Part 9, 9.1, square footage, went from 5,000 to 21,000.
All right.
Now that's something to shout about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't change.
That won't change in the future, though, no. That will not.
Unless we get
Well-
a branch.
Yeah, our new branch. That would be the next library director.
That would be the Beaver Creek branch.
Yeah, the Beaver Creek branch, yeah, right next to your house, right?
Yes.
So then, at the end, let's see here, there's notes that have been listed. They always ask for that. You know, nothing that you wouldn't expect. It's kind of that big overview of like all kinds of input items. So there's that, and then, you know, some of those figures would go directly back to like our standards, like how well do we meet certain things. At least it would help inform it. We tried to get away from too many quantitative, like I have this many books, so I'm doing this great of a job, because that, as we know, doesn't always translate. You might have a lot of books and they might all be really bad books, you know, that nobody ever checks out. And what good is that, right? So when we're writing the standards, we try to keep quantitative in mind, but not let it like answer everything. There is a movement, and I'm sure you're aware of, to try to have way more outcomes. Like I'm trying to get to this goal. I'm trying to have like a happy, educated constituency out there, and this is how I'm going to show that this is happening, and this is how the library is going to contribute to that. And we may talk more about that in our strategic planning
I have some
process.
input on that, because we went through, this is now the 80s, and a large corporation went through that, and it was total HE double toothpicks, because nobody could figure out, well, we're already doing the work, and all we're supposed to tell them, how, you know, they couldn't get their minds around it.
It's really a different perspective, yeah. Yeah. definitely.
So I'm not looking forward to it.
Well, there's a project called Project Outcome that is sponsored by PLA, which is the Public Library Association, which that's the national branch for public libraries of the ALA.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I think what we'll do is we'll plug it in where we think it applies, you know? So then the next thing is something that Dawn and I could tell you about. It's the draft report from the library district. And there's been a lot of gnashing of teeth at the LDAC meetings to make sure that we provide information to the Board of County Commissioners that really clearly shows how we are using the district funds in a appropriate manner.
I think the word is legal.
Legal, okay? Legal,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because the ballot is held up at every meeting and
yeah.
quoted verbatim, so.
Well,
This is an attempt by members of that group that are calling for that kind of reportage from the library systems to come up with a form that we now can use to answer those questions.
So we've always, LDAC has always had a report that not always, okay, in the last, like, since I've been here, we've always tried to put together some information that would go up to the Board of County Commissioners so that they would know that we are trying to make sure that there's some oversight over the funds and that the money that they distribute out to the cities indeed goes to the library. And there's two major, like, complications that we may have mentioned before. We have, like, distress over there.
There you go.
Got it?
No, I got it.
Awesome.
Here,
Okay.
I'm running.
One is those cities who have allocated costs, are those allocated costs that they give to the library, are those fair? And is that what the district money is for? Because the master order and all that stuff says that it has to be direct library cost.
Can't be a capital expenditure.
Well, and then that's number two.
That's number two.
That's number two. The other argument is
You can't
about,
use it for city expenses or something like that.
yeah, well, it's supposed to be spent on the library, not on the city. So the library money should not go towards, like, the police department, right?
Right?
And then should those funds be used towards capital projects or just operations? And,
They've
well,
never settled that issue, have they?
we just decided, we interpreted it in Oregon City that that money could be used for operations and capital. We saved a lot of money over time that we weren't spending. We used that towards the project, the capital, and annually we are spending about $400,000 to pay off the bond. And that is coming out of district money, although the city's contribution could be applied straight to that as well. You know what I'm saying? It's just transfer funds, whatever. So a number of cities have also put district money towards capital. And
Did Canmetas do that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But anyway, just to wrap up this topic before we dive down the rabbit hole on that topic, this is the proposed new report, because when, like, Dawn came on and people came on that were no longer library directors, they wanted to change how, they didn't think that our past report that we used was substantial enough and it offered up the right information. So what they did is they had a subcommittee, and this is what the subcommittee came up with. And this actually draws a lot on the state report that we just looked at. And so as far as I'm concerned, that's great, because, like, if you have it in one place and you can just use it in another place as well, that's fine. You know, I just didn't want to be making up, like, new things that don't even really matter, because the state report should capture everything that matters already, right? So that's what this draft is more or less about.
And just as an aside, one of my library contacts, I won't say where or who, but learned about this and dug it out and was totally pleased with it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because their civic/library situation is a moil of mixed expenditures for this and that and the other thing, and so this would straighten that out, she thought, so.
Well, and should some of those things be mixed, that's up to each city, but you know.
Yeah.
The city is very good here of just like keeping our money like really separate. It's all ours, regardless of what's left at the end of the year. It's all ours. That will go into reserves. Nobody else gets to spend it. You know, Oregon City really is very good about that.
Yeah,
So we don't have to worry about that stuff.
But
They
there's
are
also-
not so,
Yeah.
they are not so clear in other cities.
there's also a lot of distrust out there.
Yeah.
That if they can't see the numbers, then you gotta be stealing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so, but
And then these allocated costs that some cities charge, and that's just the way they operate. They charge every department allocated costs. But a lot of those departments come out of general fund, so then it feels like extra, you know, money that if it comes out of a district, you know what I'm saying? So, we don't have that here. I give a little bit of money towards IT every year, like $5,000. I help pay the salary of the, our facilities person, who is like at the library every single day fixing things with money well spent. And that's as much as we get charged, if you want to call it, from the city for anything. And I think those are very, very reasonable.
I forget what our deadline, January for this?
Huh?
January for this report?
Yeah, so Dawn and I are supposed to sit down and fill this out. And
I
then
know
bring-
everything, of course.
Yeah, Dawn knows everything. I'm gonna have Dawn fill it out. I'm gonna say, Dawn, take the state library report and just go ahead and fill this out. But you can see they also want to know a little bit about board member composition. They're looking to be sure that like the entire county, including out of city or you know, all that area is represented. And our board makeup has always been that we have had out of city representatives. So that's like really helpful for us. So that's what that is.
Now, is this information that you're gonna fill out in this form? Is it all public information?
Yeah, it's all public information. That's a thing, we argued for a very long time about, well, this is all public information, but nobody really wants to like dive into it and find it themselves. And because the cities are also different as well, and how they do their finances and everything else, it's just way easier if we can just like bring back a report that is consistent from everybody that's got, you know, then you're comparing apples to apples more, way more. So, I mean, I totally agree with the need for something like this, and since most of it, so much of it is based on the state report, I don't feel like it's a huge burden. It's fine.
And when it's all filled out and everybody's copies are all turned in to someone, who is evaluating it and who is looking at it and saying, oh, that's not right?
Well, that's a really good question.
That's a good question.
That's a
I
really
don't-
good question.
I don't think the county is gonna be doing that. I think it's gonna be a member of the same committee.
Because doesn't the county want to get out of the business
Well-
generally?
Well, we can talk
That's-
about that,
That's my next thing here.
but
No,
DA, the county cannot get out of the business of running the district, and this is strictly like oversight of the money of the district.
I see.
And so if nobody else, these reports from each city will go straight up to the Board of County Commissioners. What they do with them, I don't know.
So
I-
that's the accountability is
Yeah.
at that level? I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Well, in the LDAC, they would make like a recommendation, like, here's your reports, they all look good, we recommend, we pat everybody on the head. I don't know,
But
you
you've
know?
got tons of expense detail in here.
I know it.
That can be very different from city to city.
I know,
Just,
I know.
you know,
I saw that.
I mean, certainly, you know, with all the questions we've asked ourselves about strategic plans already, we serve a different community than Oswego does. And
Yes,
so
very
on.
much
And
so.
So these numbers aren't really going to be the same.
No, they're not gonna be the same. And probably what the smart thing to do would be to complete it, run it by you guys, make sure you understand where the figures have come from, and then take it to LDAC and figure it out. But this is just draft, and what our assignment is to go home, fill it out, and return for a meeting in January. We're not having another meeting until January. Thank you.
Do we have a meeting in December, by the way?
No, I don't think so.
So we couldn't do that draft and give it to this,
We probably could, although they don't want to see that in December. They want to interview people and be done with the meeting in December. You know what I
that's
mean?
what I thought, yeah.
So, but anyway, I also could just send it to you. I could just email it to you. But we're gonna fill it out, and as we fill it out, if we have questions, comments, etc., then we can bring that feedback back to the group, because it's just draft at this point.
It might, yeah, at an upper level, it may be that you have to boil it down to costs per square foot or something to
Maybe.
make it comparable.
Well, yeah, and some of these things, I'm like, really? You have to like know that, like really, that's up to you?
Yeah, well, and then just my editorial comment is that this is kind of a mouse's endeavor to create the world, because it's never going to get done. We don't have a vote in this. We'd have to go back to the master order in order to change anything. So our LDAC group, seeing these numbers, couldn't say, well, Oregon City, you can't spend that money on that anymore because Canby isn't spending that money. And they can't do that. They have no power to do that I
They
know of.
really have no authority.
Yeah.
All they can do is say, Board of County Commissioners, it doesn't look like Canby is spending their district money in the right way.
Just point the finger.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what they want the power to do.
and
Yeah.
that's what they're hoping that these reports would reveal if it needs revealing. I mean, I feel pretty confident that the money's going to the libraries, but each city's doing it differently, But anyway, it's an effort, it's that transparency, accountability step that apparently we didn't have enough of the right stuff.
And do you agree that this kind of all started with the Gladstone Oak Grove mess up there?
Well, this goes back to Canby,
Go back to Canby.
yeah, and the old LDAC,
Okay.
because that's where the report came from. Because when we realized each city was doing things differently than each other, like taking allocated costs and some not, and some doing it and everything else, it felt like it was our responsibility to start gathering information on that. And rightly so, we've got people who are not library directors on this committee, because the library directors are kind of, in between a rock and a hard spot. When you say to your city manager, like, well, the city shouldn't be taking that money from the library, for allocated costs. That really needs to come from citizens who are outraged because the city is taking money from the library, if that's what's going on. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the library director can say it, but they also might get fired.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I won't,
Tough-
because I built
tough
the building
situation.
and I'll never get fired, but. Anyway, that's what this is, and we will report back on that.
Yes.
And Dawn, let's save the rest of LDAC stuff until later.
Absolutely.
Okay, awesome.
Move on to the art policy review.
Yeah. So we've had 2 art displays so far, one from Three Rivers Artists Guild, and then a second one from a private artist. And what I realized along the way is that we have like no policy, just kind of making sure that they knew we're not responsible for these pieces of art, even though they're sitting right out here in the middle of public and somebody could walk off with this. So this was kind of a attempt to kind of have something to give an artist that has a little bit of process in it, and also a little bit of like expectations as far as responsibilities and all that. So that's basically what it's for. I could see at some point in time where we might have other art displays that we would even pay for to come in, like a big traveling art display or something. But that would be, I think, would be covered under a different kind of activity than this. This is for those kind of rotating.
Now, you'd have a contract for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we'd have a big contract for that. In fact, we got contacted by, there's a art display of Maurice Sendak's art that requires way more space than we could ever provide. And it costs $10,000, and they're booking out to like 2021, and they have an opening. And they're like just kind of contacting everybody in Oregon. We'd love to see this come to Oregon. And I'm like, well, I don't have enough space. I don't have enough money. I
We
probably
would have
wouldn't
to
be
pay
working here then.
$10,000 for it?
Yeah, huh?
We would have to pay $10,000 for it?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a lot. It's a lot of money. It would be cool, but we don't have the right space for, as, you know, they describe how many pieces and everything. It's a lot, you know? So, but yeah, that would be a contract. Yeah. So this is, you know, it's pretty straightforward. I had my amazing staff look it over a few times.
Did you have a model to
Yes.
pull this
Yeah, I
together?
didn't,
Good.
yeah,
All right.
no. We create nothing from scratch in libraries because we share everything. And libraries are amazing. If you send something out and say, hey, do you have our policy? Oh, yeah. Here's one, use this. It's a good starting point.
I don't have an art policy, and we had an art opening Monday night, and the artist, she wanted to display something in the Gotham building, and I said, fine. So I paid for her materials and installed it myself,
Yeah,
and she can have it back anytime she wants, but, you know, that's the
That's it.
policy.
yeah. Does your insurance cover it if it gets stolen?
Ding.
It's not mine.
So does she know that?
I don't think she has insurance at all.
Yeah, so yeah, and some of these people might not, but I want them
That's
to
right.
know, like, I'm off the hook, you know? So,
When I worked at the Carnegie
yes,
Center, before it was, again, a library and now an annex, but I installed art all the time there. And it was insured because things walked away. We had staff on every floor watching stuff all the time, and it just walks out the door.
Yeah.
They're more clever.
Oh, we have, I mean, I went to the trouble of buying the security locking devices
Oh.
that your paintings, you put them on the wall and then you lock them in.
wow.
Yeah, we just had nails.
And,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it turns out they're very clever little devices, and they only cost a couple of bucks a package for
Well,
each
that's a
one.
new thing. We didn't have that back then.
But it's
In the old days.
it's really hard to use. But anyway,
Make a note.
Yeah, make a note for the future. So, any comments or questions on this? Yes,
I find some of the wording a little,
yeah, I'm
clumsy.
not surprised.
but a sales policy, I guess you have to have that if you have a show, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, all of these artists would love to sell their stuff,
Yes.
you know?
that's the whole
Yeah.
point.
Why are they showing
That's
it
fine, yeah,
otherwise?
yeah.
Sure.
Who's gonna make the decision of what show, or let's say, you've
Right.
got several artists coming in who want to display because you have an open space there.
Right.
Who's gonna make the decision as to which one?
Well, right now, we've had 2 people request. I mean, you know, and they've been at different times. So we don't have like a plethora of people clamoring. We probably could figure out how to use maybe some different spaces if it was more than one person. But it's kind of first come, first serve. You know, it's like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what kind of art it is and deciding if it's, you know, I don't want to go into that stuff. Right?
But you're treading right along the line of
Censorship.
Censorship.
Oh, I know.
Sure.
This is why I'm like, if it's just first come, first serve, then it's not a problem.
But what if it isn't appropriate?
Here's another anecdote along that line.
Well, it is in the Carnegie. And so very few children are in the Carnegie. Like we do, that's like, it even said, maybe it says in here or not. Yeah, primarily in the Carnegie portion. And I think that's appropriate so that it's, if it is more inappropriate, then, or you know what I'm talking about, then at least it's in an adult part of the library where it's not going to be viewed by a ton of kids.
Well, we know it when we see it.
Well, then let's talk about that when we see it.
Well,
Yeah.
that's my point. I go to this yoga place up in Milwaukee. It's beautiful white walls, and it's all, tranquil and namaste and all that. I get there one night like this, and here's art on every square inch of the walls, and it's,
Graphic, huh? Graphic?
graphic, yes. It's people doing things that they like to do, and I don't know if you're in yoga positions, if that's something you should be contemplating. Maybe so. And I asked the person, I said, well, what is this? Well, it says we're part of the citywide show art to people thing, and so we have to
Wow.
provide our walls to whatever comes up. And they had no say in the art that came to them, and it had
Wow.
to stay there for a month.
Wow,
Yeah, it was pretty crappy.
that's a long
Excuse me,
time.
it was inappropriate. Let's put that.
Well, so, our behavior guidelines do not allow for, pornographic images on computers, internet computers, for instance. And, those are not technically illegal, but that's a community standard that we believe we reflect.
Yeah.
And I think that, we probably could use some of that. If we really felt like it was really inappropriate, we could use some of that community standard. And it would be reflected in our behavior guidelines as those are written. You know what I mean? So I think we could ask that those be in alignment.
Have you been to the magazine section, the checkout stands at Fred Meyer?
Yeah.
Some of them have a little black thing that goes over the cover of the magazine. You
Yeah.
ever seen that? It's not to hold the magazine in.
No, I know that.
No, it's to cover up
Yeah.
what's going on
But
behind.
like if you put a black thing over a picture.
Yeah, the
it's
same thing.
kinda-
Everybody wants to look under it.
Exactly.
same
Well,
thing.
yeah, and it's kind of like, what's the point now,
It's everywhere,
I
it's
think
everywhere.
that is a very good question. And I'm also think that, what we do is like use this, see how it goes, see what the problems
That's
are.
the best way to do it,
Yeah.
yeah. Do we need a motion to?
I had two things.
Sure,
When it says sales policy,
yeah.
should that be artists will be allowed, or should it just be artists? It sounded kind of awkward. I understand it.
Artists,
It would be
plural, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's appropriate, doesn't matter, whatever sounds right to you guys. I can certainly add an S. Well, then that needs to be changed, like payment will be made directly to the artist if an artist has an exclusive sales contract, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that all sounds right.
so, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, but you could change that whole sentence, as artists may offer works for sale.
Artists
Artists
may,
offer works for
That sounds
sale,
good.
period.
Okay.
Take all the other stuff out of there.
all right. What else, Scott? You said you had two
Oh,
things.
the opening sentence.
Wait.
It says, art exhibits in the library provides an opportunity for artists to exhibit their works. That's two exhibits in one sentence. So it would be,
How about show their works?
the library provides space for artists to exhibit their works.
I could send it to you and you could rewrite it.
I could.
Well, because I don't think this is the appropriate place to rewrite it. Just saying.
That's fine. I'm glad to do it. I'll put a pencil to it. Is that okay with
We'll
you
have
guys?
fewer words. Does that sound good?
Fewer words is good.
Fewer words.
Yeah,
always
fewer words is
good.
good. Scott, did you want to bring our attention to another area, though?
No.
Okay, Don will revise. All right.
Do we want to do a motion to support as it is with revisions? And
Yeah,
move
it's
on
because
from
that's
that?
really what I need from you is approval of the content,
Yeah,
basically.
content's good.
Okay,
The object is good.
A motion to approve the content and with revisions?
great.
With subjective revisions, yeah.
Second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, art policy review.
Excellent. One thing I want to mention while we're on this topic is we wrote our conference room usage policy to, and I didn't send you a copy of this, to allow people down to the age of 13 and above could reserve a room.
Right.
That was really unsuccessful. The 13 to 16 age group was driving us insane. They were damaging our rooms. They were not behaving. And it might have been a small population, but they felt very representative, and we changed the age to 16. We needed to be able to keep a better eye on them. They needed to be out of those rooms.
Do you need that voted on?
Yeah, it was probably voted on to begin with, so.
There you go.
Yeah, probably we should like approve that revision.
So I move that we revise the meeting room policy to raise the age from 13 to something.
16.
To make it to 16 and above, right?
Yeah.
For reserving.
Yes,
For reserving and
reservations,
using
yeah.
the library meeting rooms to 16 and above.
Yep, and I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, approved.
Great, thank you. All right, interview processes. You each have a copy of the interview questions from last year.
Yeah.
And we will be interviewing 3 people at next month
Oh,
In
Yeah.
December?
in December. And hopefully that's like all we have to do in December, I think. It would be nice to have a light month, don't you think? It's December after all.
Sure.
So, last year when we were interviewing, we had finished the building. So these were kind of questions based on the building being finished. So I mean, they may be just fine for this year, but I wanted to make sure that we reviewed them before we,
Let's see.
I think they look good to me.
I read through these and I don't know what else we'd ask.
yeah, I guess that's the question is like, what else would we ask to kind of get
They're
at?
fine.
Question number
Yeah.
7 is kind of, they're going to say, of course, we need to do something for the south side,
Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of a leading
it
question.
is kind of a leading question,
But I don't think it really, all it does is open up some discussion.
right?
I mean, I'm all in favor of it, but I
Right.
still,
Yeah.
Sure.
it's,
It would be, yeah, it's basically just to get people talking about that concept. Ken, you answered these last year. What did you think, was there something that you thought we should have been asking you instead of these?
No, I don't think so. I was, I didn't have enough background in this at the time to do anything more than just what I did say.
Look what you've learned this year. You've learned so much. Okay, then what I'm hearing is these are fine. Okay,
For now.
for now, yeah. Okay, great. If you have other thoughts, before December, let me know. Otherwise, what I'll do is get in touch with our 3 candidates and like invite them to the December, I should have already done that, actually, to the December meeting, and we'll plan on that being our only thing. And then that will be Eileen and Laura's last meeting as well.
One thing I brought up when I was being interviewed was that you wanted a resume, and I'd never had a resume in my life.
Well, so you can attach a resume if you have one, but if you don't, if there's an application you can fill out, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
fill out the application,
Yeah.
but the resume was, I was a little bit blindsided there.
Oh, yeah. Well, what I will do is I will forward you the applications for our 3 candidates in between now and December, so you have some time to
Yeah.
look at them.
Okay.
And then I'll get in touch with those people as well, okay? Let them know what our calendar is. And I can't remember if all of them attached a resume or not. One of them is like a former dean, and he used to teach at a library science. He used to run the library science program somewhere.
Knows too much.
Yeah, he's gonna know a lot, actually. I'm a little worried. But you should see his resume. Very impressive, very impressive. All right, communications.
Is that me?
That's you, it's DA, it's whoever.
I can be really short. We haven't had, but we did have a meeting at the board for the foundation, and we're adding a member, but we lost a member, and so nothing really has changed. We're of the opinion that we're going to wait until this board does a little more strategic planning before the foundation does much in the way of strategic planning for the
Makes sense.
future. So that's pretty much where we are, stasis.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, though.
Me?
And we didn't have I didn't go to the Friends luncheon.
Oh, Dawn and I went to the Friends.
Yeah, we had
luncheon.
all right Friends luncheon. Food was mediocre, but coffee was pretty good.
The speakers were amazing.
The speakers were just amazing, especially John McLaughlin.
Oh, yeah, Doug was there as John McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I guess one thing I got to talk about is the rest of the LDAC meeting. You probably already know that the county and Gladstone and the Oak Lodge area have come up to some kind of an agreement on libraries up there, and it's going to be 2 libraries. Right now, as it sits, 2 libraries run by the county. So the librarians there will be county employees, right? Gladstone drops its lawsuit against the county for the $1 million that, or two, where was it, whose county, that was supposed to happen like this. And then they build their own smaller 6,000 square foot.
Yes, that's right.
6,000 square foot unit like this, and then Oak Grove gets a new one someplace up there that the county will fund to the tune of $2.67 million.
Well, that's not much.
No.
No, it's not. I can update some of this too.
Okay, but they go from, when they were talking about square footages here, 25,500 square foot of service area in these 2 libraries, 19,500 at Oak Lodge and 6,000 at Gladstone. And I don't know what Oak Lodge is right now, but it's it's like 5,000 or something.
Oh, no, it's bigger than that.
Is it
But
bigger than that? Well, anyhow, they're getting some kind of a new building, a new place to be.
I think it might be 8. I
Located.
don't know, anyway.
Anyhow, so they've had pictures in the paper of the groups together like this, and some of these people who came up with this report that we're supposed to fill out are movers and shakers in that same system like this. So they didn't talk out against it, so they seem to be for it. The only kicker I can see in all of this is that someplace in here there is a ballot measure in May of 2018 for
Yeah.
this. So there's some bad feeling about the last one. They'd already passed a ballot measure, I think, in Gladstone, didn't they? And they had the plans and everything, and land donated, and then something happened. So
Yeah,
it's just too much.
Save Gladstone or something
Yeah.
came along.
Yeah.
So part of the agreement is that Gladstone contribute $200,000 a year to library operations, which they already are contributing. So it's not like it's new money or anything
Yeah.
else. And so the ballot measure in May is approval of that concept. And the other thing is that the county then rewrite the master order so that district money can be put towards capital.
And that's where you come in
And
again,
that's where I
because
come in.
you just had a
So,
meeting on that.
I was invited to participate in that group because I am now the chair of the directors group. I know, right?
You.
Lucky me. And so I just came from that meeting. It was at 3 today, and it's very interesting. Basically, people agree that this just can't happen unless some of that district money gets spent on capital. And indeed, many cities have already done that, like us. And so people are kind of proposing models that would make it so it's not just unrestricted, we're using all of your library operations on capital kind of thing. We're not going to they're trying to come up with something that wouldn't allow cities to just drain the bank. Even if it went into a building, you still have to have money for staff and operations to some degree. And actually how Oregon City did it is a pretty straightforward, good model. I mean, the city is backing the bonds, they're GO bonds, so we could go back to the taxpayers if we had to, and, we had excess money that we saved, and annually we have excess money that we put towards the repayment of the bond, it's not going to be as excessive as it is now as the years go by. But, you know, how else were we going to come up with something, right? So they're hoping to rewrite this in such a way that everybody will sign off on it. And that's the charge for the county to come up with something.
But the county wanted to get out of the business.
So they still want to get out of it, but they realize that they're probably not going to get out of it for a while. So they're willing to stay in the library business long enough to get Gladstone and Oak Lodge set up in new buildings. And then they are hoping at some point in time that, like, you know, Oregon City or West Lynn or Milwaukee or someplace will take over the running of those libraries. Whatever kind of makes sense at that point in time. That will be long after my time, because it's going to take a long time for those libraries to get built. I mean, there is not even a location. There's a location that's been suggested for the Oak Lodge Library so they haven't even picked out a place.
I had a question on,
But you can't you can't build a library for $2.5 million.
No, and actually, they estimated it, that at the meeting, it was an estimate of like 5.9, but then like their librarians talked to me, and I was like, well, ours was 10.7, so that was the new figure, and they're going to the county, and they're trying to get the county to help with more money, and I think there's gonna be, I'm not sure how well that's gonna work.
But where would it come from otherwise if it isn't from the county?
I don't know.
I mean, there's no city there, so.
No, well,
There's no
they
way to
apparently
generate
are
bond.
hoping to form a city there, but that's down the road too. That doesn't just happen overnight. But,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of little balls in the air on this
Well,
one.
sure, we'd all be okay with Oak Grove forming a city just so they can have a library. That's a great idea.
I think there's gotta be some other reasons for it.
at the
hoping.
Department of Economic Development, they used to say, we was rolling in the mud fighting for a dime when what we needed was $1.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
That's
a good one.
basically true.
So what's the $2.5 million? the
I
county's
don't
gonna
No,
know.
no, it's a
what that
number,
figure is.
that's a number that's on the settlement thing that they handed out here, so who knows?
And then the or the ballot measure is not a bond measure.
No.
That's just to,
It's not a
well,
bond
here's the
measure,
wording on that.
It's just
so
a kind of
word-
an approval of expenditure, because
Okay.
in Gladstone, everything that gets spent has to be approved.
Yeah, it says, submit a ballot measure rescinding prohibition on using local funds for library construction.
Oh, I see.
Because the one that they had before, it was like the city could not expend money on the library as it was conceived before. And so there's gonna be a lot of conversation about what the ballot measure needs to say, and it may not really have to rescind that.
Yeah.
It may have to do something
But
else.
it goes
Once
back to
the
the
legal
ballot measure. The
people
ballot
get
measure
involved,
said,
yeah.
no, you can't use it for capital expenditures. And that's what we've been hearing for how many months now at this meeting, is
Yeah.
these people saying, holding that up as the Bible, sort of, so to speak. And it gets a little tiresome, but they do make a point, you know, and so something
Yeah.
has to be done, either in her
Yeah.
committee or on issue or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Ballot measure, yeah.
So that's in the works. I get to be on that committee. The sign committee for the
Oh,
new
yes.
sign.
We had a meeting on that, and I think it's moving forward. What the artist has come up with a concept. It's some kind of cedar, oak, some kind of wood, big thick thing like this, and it's engraved, and then gold lettering on with a black foreground on it. So it's going
So
to
just like the national park signs.
Okay, and so
Black, not
that was
brown.
presented, and the issue now seems to be, what is the name of the park? Is that correct?
Yeah, and what goes on the sign.
And what goes on the sign? So
And that might be dependent on the name of the park. So the name of the park used to be Library Park, and then at some point in time, it changed to Carnegie Library Park. And people now want to change it again, and there is quite a ruckus over whether it should be Carnegie Park, Library Park, Nobody Cares Park, who knows what.
Yeah.
But that name might go on the sign, because what we have now is Oregon City Public Library at whatever, Carnegie Park, I think. And so, and then there are some very strong feelings by some of the people in the group that the name Carnegie needs to be included somewhere. Even though it's been, that portion of the building has been kind of incorporated into a bigger building, people really want to recognize it. But it's hard to recognize it in a very graceful way. Because it needs to say, the sign needs to say Oregon City Public Library. And we, believe me, we had a conversation about that too. And then what, you know?
Well, the library building, the Carnegie building, excuse me, is iconic. I mean, it doesn't look like anything else in this town, right?
Right.
And it's pretty much recognizable wherever you go. You can find a Carnegie library that looks something like that. And I've noticed on the city publications, as a matter of fact, even for our newsletter, that we use the old portion of the library for our picture, not the new portion of the library for our picture. And so it's very picturesque, you know, so I can see why people would have a love affair with that building and want to name something around that. You know, and we don't care particularly, I don't think, do we?
Yeah, I actually have really strong feelings
You do?
about it.
Okay.
Like, I don't want it to say something like, Oregon City Library and Carnegie Annex or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
That
It's like, it
not
would sound terrible.
Yeah,
You know, like, the idea of it being at Carnegie Park kind of took care of that. Like, okay, there's the name, you know? So I think other things are just very awkward.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the name Oregon City Public Library, that is like not the name of the building, really. It's the name of the institution, but the institution is lodged in that building now. And that is our name by the charter.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the municipal charter.
And
So-
the conservatives say that Carnegie did not give the land for the park.
No, McLaughlin did.
McLaughlin did,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we could name it McLaughlin Park.
which wouldn't please the Carnegie people.
No. So, like, this is what your library director spends her time on.
But you do have to remember.
She drags me along in these
that
things,
the
and I-
building, the new part of our building has one sign on it only, and it just says library.
Yep.
That's it.
That's all it says. What's wrong with that? Isn't that enough?
Library.
No. We have to fight.
Oh, Scott, what do you
Fight and
think?
fume over this stuff.
What do you think?
Shall we move on?
What? I like your style, yes. Let's do it.
Number 10?
Number 10. Number 10.
Okay, I think we know what we're doing in our future, right? We discussed
We
it.
need to go back real quick and approve the minutes.
Okay.
Since we have a
Yes.
quorum now, so if there are any
I approve the
corrections?
minutes be approved as presented a long time ago.
And oh boy, I'm gonna second that one too.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There we go.
Minutes are approved.
Thank you for remembering.
Gotta be official on this. so.
You're good.
Sure you do.
Are we ready to?
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, this meeting, I guess we should vote.
Second.
All right.
I don't think we need to, but.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay.